All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. I very much hope that is the case, at least if we are indeed live. I believe that we are. I would very, very much like to say thank you for being here today. This is one of our various events that we're hosting as Field Labs every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's every month, sometimes it's slightly longer. But today we are going to speak about an entirely different topic. I'm just closing quickly my phone that is. Put this away. 1 second, everyone. Sorry about this. This is why we need an assistant, basically, here at Field Labs. So let me just recap that. Today's event is going to be about Solidity, about building on chain, about how to get started if you want to become a Web3 developer. Maybe you already have a little bit of experience and you want additional tips on how to expand your career. Maybe you actually want to land a new job. Maybe you want to start with your own project. Anyway, there's many different reasons as to why you might want to join today. What I will tell you, you've already seen two people here right there next to me, Jesse and Maria. They are both, I usually don't say experts in their fields, because I think that we in the Web3 space all have so much to learn, right? And who is truly an expert? But I would actually say that if someone is an expert in the space, it's these two. And it's actually also the third person that is going to join shortly, just because he had a little bit of difficulties with logging in. Now, what I would like to say before I hand over to them is that, of course, today we're going to speak about various things, how to start with Solidity, maybe some lessons that our experts have learned from building, right? Indeed, what are the type of skills that you need for creating secure smart contracts? Maybe, again, we'll be speaking about grants and about how to secure funding for your project. And last but not least, of course, we're going to talk also about hotter, even more things such as AI, leveraging, general purpose technologies like AI for the tech stack and for building and whatnot. Now, having said that, I'm handing over very, very shortly to our guests, but I would quickly like to introduce them. Of course, as I said, we have Jesse with us. Jesse is not only the CTO, the very, very valued CTO at Field Labs, but he's also a self-taught, this is very important, full stack Web3 developer. And he is the founder not only of a project or company called Decentralized Ventures, but he has an additional project that is called Funding Chain. I'm also myself an advisor to this very project. And that really allows this platform that he has built, this decentralized platform, allows people worldwide to raise funds for what matters to them in a fully decentralized, censor-proof kind of way. Think about it as the decentralized type of Kickstarter. And of course, we have also Maria with us. She is a fellow founder and actually the CEO of EkoLance, which is the first blockchain-based talent platform. Super, super interesting, empowering many, many, many blockchain professionals worldwide. And they're also working with hackathons alongside other things and organize them even. Very, very cool. And later, we'll be joined by our third guest. That is Alex. Alex is the writer, the author of a very, very interesting book, forthcoming shortly, an academic book about starting and building on Solidity. Now, guys, let's get started. I've quickly introduced you. I would love to learn a little bit more about who you guys are, what you're building fundamentally, and as well, maybe some other things that I forgot to mention whilst I was introducing you. Maybe you can just share a little bit more about what you're building. Maria, would you like to start? Potentially, ladies first.
Yes, thank you so much, Alex, for this invitation and for organizing this event. I believe that events like this are very important in order to educate more people about what tech stacks are there in the blockchain space and how to enter the blockchain space. So, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of EkoLance, and at EkoLance, we help blockchain protocols grow their ecosystems by organizing educational initiatives, such as technical workshops, such as boot camps on different tech stacks. And we also organize hackathons and developer challenges where builders can participate and start building their applications and apply for grants and for funding from the protocols or from accelerators in the Web3 space. And maybe to my experience with Solidity, I think that's interesting. I'm not a developer, but I had the ambition to learn Solidity. And I was very naive to think that I could learn this by buying a book, I think. So every person learns differently, right? And I'm definitely not a person that can learn by reading a book. So when you said that Jess is a self-taught developer, I think that's the best way to categorize Web3 developers. The best developer is a self-taught developer that just tried different things. When I tried to learn Solidity with the book, it didn't work out, but I have a good tip for everyone else who wants to learn Solidity. Later on, I'll say it, how to learn it. I didn't in the end. It's just not my passion, but I learned enough to understand how to build on Solidity and just to make sense of smart contracts. I think everyone in the space that is building something has to have this little understanding if they're not a developer, but working with developers. So I'm looking forward also to hear what Jesse and the other guests have to say how their road to learning Solidity was. And yeah, again, thank you for the invite.
Massive. Such a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much, Maria. I'm curious what Alex will say later about, learning from books, as he is obviously an author. Now, Jesse, indeed, as the self-taught, and a really good one, I should say as well, very objectively, engineer. What do you have to add here? And would you perhaps like to also introduce yourself a little bit more, including your other projects?
Sure. Hello, my name is Jesse. Yeah, I am the founder of Decentralized Ventures, like Alex said. We work on a couple of things over there. Funding Chain is the main project, but really everything that we work on is aimed at giving people autonomy again, and really taking away the power from big tech is really what we're all about. And so Funding Chain is designed to be able to raise funds for whatever you like without being censored. Really is the goal behind that. And then what I like to call my main gig is as the CTO of Thrilled, where we are building a ton of projects right now. Actually, kind of all centered around event management and got some big things brewing right now. So, but yeah, just in the summary, that's me.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to put also the QR code to connect with you for whoever is watching now, or perhaps indeed later on LinkedIn. Guys, there are, of course, right, lots of different things that we can cover. Jesse, I would like actually to start with you, after which I'll move to Maria. First, kind of like, if someone is starting out, right, with their journey, if you want to call it as such, like also thinking back about how you started, like what are potential prerequisites? Very important thing, I believe. What are the important ones do you consider are really essential for learning Solidity, or just maybe how to get started? Jesse, maybe you can share something about your experience in that regard.
Yeah, I would say the two biggest things as far as getting started is to find some kind of path to follow, and also understand the concepts that you're trying to tackle. Yeah, as far as the path is concerned, a lot of new devs, I should say, or when you're learning new languages, even as an experienced dev, sometimes it it's hard to know where to begin. It's hard to know where to keep going, and so just knowing what resources are out there to be able to find that kind of guidance to show you which ways to go is huge. But I would say even bigger than that is understanding what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and really have a reason for doing it as well. If you come into it knowing you want to build something specific, then you've got something to aim for, which gives you kind of that self-guided path a little bit. And yeah, it really the concepts behind this though is really where you can get lost, or you can like really uh, uh, kind of gain your path and be able to keep going. Because I think that a lot of people get into this not really understanding what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. What's happening with an EVM, what's happening with the Solana virtual machine, what's happening there, and how these things are actually working, and then what's going on with these smart contracts that you're building, is a really important thing as well. So yeah, the guidance and the concepts, I think, are the two biggest things to get you started.
Thank you very much for adding all of that to the table. And indeed, knowing what's happening behind the scenes is always key. Having said that, we are waiting for Alex still to join us. If you see us from time to time being distracted, just because we're communicating with him as well to make him enter the studio, just because he had a couple of issues. So in case the audience is noticing that is correct. Now, Maria, I know that you're not a dev, nor am I. Better for the world, I would say, if I'm speaking for myself, better than I'm not a dev. I would blow up something within a second. Now, what I would love to hear from you, Maria, can we speak immediately for a second about, finding jobs, careers, opportunities, other types of gigs? I mean, so many people that are looking for jobs in this space, right? What can you tell them if they're here to eagerly hear from you?
Yes, so I would say that when you're looking for a job, actually, it's no different than for anyone else looking for a job, right? As a developer, as a non-developer, only developers have one advantage, that there is also a very practical way to find a job, which is attending hackathons. So I would like to start with that, attending hackathons. There are multiple types of hackathons. You have online and offline. These are like the two main categories. I would always advise, if you're in a location where you cannot attend an in-person hackathon, you're somewhere very far away, or you don't have the funds to travel to a big hackathon, participate in an online hackathon, because through that, first, you will gain experience, and second, you will expand your network. And the best jobs are found through your network. So this is advice number one. If you can travel to an actual hackathon, to an in-person hackathon, do that, because there you will actually meet potential employers and you can showcase your skills, you can talk to them, express your desire to work with them, or that you're looking for a job. And I think conferences and hackathons are a really great way to find jobs. Another way to look for jobs is, of course, different Web3 job platforms. And I've actually made a small list when I was preparing here for the panel discussion. And I can type it later in the chat or as a comment, so people can actually have the names of the platforms. So we have the crypto job list as one platform. We have Web3 jobs. These are lists of developer and also non-developer jobs where everyone can look for a job. We also have the devjobscanner.com. This is another website only for developers, as well as the website wearedevelopers.com. I think it's more for European jobs or jobs within Europe. I know that a lot of developers want the flexibility of working from home or working their flexible hours, maybe even be freelancers. And there are several platforms where you can also do some gigs, not really find a job, but do like gigs where you get paid for. Two of them that I can mention are Dwork and Gitcoin. These are platforms where Solidity developers can find gigs. And as I mentioned, conferences and hackathons, these are, in my opinion, really great places because you also introduce yourself in person, right? Which makes a lot of difference when someone wants to give you a job. Another thing that I would advise everyone is also to search for startups that recently got funded. This information you can find on various websites. Also, you can check the major VCs in the space and see who they funded recently, because startups that just got funded or received larger funding, they also want to expand, right? They want to grow and they have the money to pay you, which is also important. And then you can just click on their websites and see their job postings, or write their founding team directly, because the founders are the ones, of course, who know what kind of jobs are currently needed. Not every time the jobs are posted on the website. Sometimes the jobs are not yet online, right, and are currently created, or the the job requirements are currently written. So if you write them your skills and who you are and what you can do, maybe they can even tailor a job for you. And one last advice, and I know several people who found jobs like this: Twitter. If you post about your skills, if you post about things you're building, sometimes protocols or companies find you, they start following you, or people within these companies start to follow you. And they would approach you if they think that you could be a good fit for their company. I think it's called social coding, right? Like posting about what you're building, what you're doing. This way, you're kind of also building like a online reputation in your field. And honestly, when I'm hiring someone, I always check their social media because I think it's very exciting to see what they are doing on social media. People say your network is your net worth, but not only, also you can present your work in these social networks, which is proof that you have done these things. And employers look at that and you can use it to your benefit. Back in the day, we were posting like drinking parties on Facebook, and today we can post about our job, right? So I think this is also a great way to showcase your skills and your talents and what you're doing and find a job.
Wow, Maria, I didn't want to interrupt you because you said so many things that make sense. Actually, I think a couple of the things that really stood out to me is what you said, obviously, about events, right? That it's great to meet people in real life at events, right? Jobs, networking, finding opportunities. Of course, Thrilled Labs and Thrilled as a networking and event networking offering, we very much echo that. I would say, though, what you said also about virtual events, including this one, and putting yourself out there, just writing a comment in the chat, right, as some of the people are doing, or indeed just connecting with others. I think personally it's a little bit problematic that so many of the wonderful events are hosted in certain parts of the world, right? Maybe if you have a little bit less resources, or maybe for other reasons, maybe family, you can't travel constantly to all of these different events. For that very reason, I do think that virtual network and just getting to know people on a virtual basis is very, very important. I would say that with our team, right? We have at Thrilled Labs, for instance, a global team, and some of us have not even met in real life yet, especially because we're not such a well-funded company at this point. I mean, we're funded, but we're not backed by billions and billions, right? So we have to always take these things into account. And that brings me to that other thing that you mentioned that I think is really, really important to recapitulate here, is that indeed looking for projects that do have funding, right? That have space to hire. I think that was an extremely clever remark from your end. And that brings me maybe to the next question as well, because I would love to just circle back for a second to Jessie. Jessie, first of all, in case you have something that you wanted to add to all of this, feel free. But I would like to understand also a little bit more about how you mastered Solidity specifically. If we're speaking about this very language, could you use maybe some techniques or strategies that helped you in this very beginning? Help enlighten us about you.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. And just kind of for a second, just kind of touching on some of the things that Maria was saying. Every paid gig that I've ever gotten comes from either going to an event and talking to people or my online network. So, yeah, those things are incredibly important. And really, if you're trying to be a dev in this space these days, you have to do those things really in order to be able to get jobs. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that. As far as some of the things that I did personally, some of the main tools, right, that I would recommend for people, we'll start there really. Remix is one where that tool is priceless. I think it's ethereum.remix.org or something like that, I want to say. But if you type in remix and Ethereum in Google, you will find it. But that platform has every Open Zeppelin smart contract available to you, as well as other pre-written secured smart contract templates that you can use to build your smart contract off of. One thing today is understanding when you're getting into it is that you don't have to recreate the wheel. There's ERC20 smart contracts ready to go for you. There's ERC1155 smart contracts out there ready to go for you. 721s, all of them. If you want to do pretty much any kind of smart contract that has a standard, an ERC standard written, you have a pre-written smart contract out there. So understanding that, and then going to a tool like Remix where you can go on there, it'll ask you questions ahead of time of what you're trying to build. And so if there's a template out there for it, it'll just pop it in there for you and give you a good start. And then it's got built-in ways to be able to run everything right there. You can deploy the smart contract on a test network that it deploys right there for you, and then you can interact with it. You can take it to the next level and deploy it on test nets or even real networks right from there. So using tools like that make life a lot easier when starting to learn, just because it puts everything right there for you. You've also got things like Hard Hat, which could be a little bit more difficult to set up because you have to set up a local environment on your own computer, but it still does all those kinds of things for you. But learning how to use those kinds of tools first is a huge thing. Then, honestly, once you find what you're trying to build, you identify that, really just learning it, fighting and, dealing with the errors and trying to figure them out and understand the concept behind what you're doing. Like I said before, is a huge thing, but putting all those together and doing it every single day, really is the thing that will bring you mastery. Really, I think that's with really anything that you do in life. If you do it over and over and over and over and over, you're gonna perfect it. So coding, Solidity is the same exact thing. I think there's a little bit more to it with Solidity, with Web3 just generally, because the concepts behind it are some really big concepts, and being able to wrap your mind around some of those things can take some time. And so that is still a really important thing there. But the repetition, I would say, as far as for me, was the biggest thing, because you end up having breakthroughs eventually, and as long as you keep fighting through the bugs. If you give up on the bug, you're never gonna fix it. But if you keep fighting the bug, you're gonna squash it, you're gonna move on, you're gonna have a perfectly written smart contract that will do exactly what you want it to do.
Massive. I love what you just said, Jesse, and I know that also from a day-to-day basis how you're fighting with bugs. Also, I'm thrilled, like you're going, you keep going. Something else, and thank you for adding all these things on the table. We will hear from you later again. I quickly wanted to mention to the audience, you have already seen him appearing on screen. Finally, he made it. Luckily. Alexandros, thank you so much for joining. Also, you just repeating to try to get into the studio. Finally, you managed to do it. So also here, just going, and ultimately you smash it. I would very much like to tell to the audience just for a second that Alexandros is a very esteemed and important guest of our show, even though he came a little bit on later. He is the author of a book that is already out there or forthcoming very shortly. You can tell me that in a second. Alex, it's called Beginning Solidity, Learn to Program Smart Contracts with indeed Solidity. And you are a guest lecturer with various academic titles under your belt, an established writer, and a thinker. I can also add that. Would you perhaps quickly like to introduce anything that I haven't said and maybe share a little bit more about your book? And welcome. I will just unmute you. Sorry about that. Okay, here you go.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra. Yes, well, more or less you told a little bit more about, you basically told about my background. The only other thing that I would add is that I've been working in different, let's say, positions within the Web3 space. In the very beginning, I started in PR and news, let's say, with a little bit with Cointelegraph, then also with first with Bean Crypto, then with Cointelegraph. Then I went into digital identity. I was also learning Solidity at that point, and I've also heard basically your previous speaker, what he was basically saying, and I entirely agree with that as well. And as for my book, it's basically how to start learning Solidity, but from the very beginning. Let's say, even if you do not know anything about Web3 or anything about Solidity, I start from the very beginning. It's a special, let's say, programming book, because it doesn't deal only with programming. It starts with the history of money, why Web3, let's say, and then you kind of start with the very basics of programming. Let's say you kind of learn what variables are, what the different visibility levels are in Solidity, let's say the very basics of it. And then from then on, you start with your first smart contract, which is how to create smart contract that says hello world. And then you start building up uh, like them with more difficulty and more difficulty, up to the point that you start creating your own custom decentralized autonomous organization, your own protocol, let's say, based on how do you call it, on the DICE stable coin, where you can basically borrow and lend stable coins, let's say. So it goes from the very beginning to becoming, I would not say entirely a master in what you're doing, because one book cannot do that. It's also quite short, but it covers a lot of stuff where you kind of understand what the book is, what Web3 is about, and you understand the very foundational concepts of Web3, from how to create, let's say, your own ERC20 token, your ERC721 token, that's basically fungible and fungible tokens, up to a bit more advanced things like decentralized autonomous organizations and borrowing and lending protocols. That's more or less it. And at the end, you also have, let's say, how to continue your education, or how to start. I think if you read it, you could still start applying for jobs, as long as you build everything that the book says, and you understand what you're building, not just doing what the book says. You should be able to land at least a junior Solidity position. But if you want to continue and learn further on, I kind of give some certain, how do you call it, some certain material where someone can go and learn further with the book.
I will stop you there immediately, Alex, or not immediately.
All right.
We heard a little bit already about you. However, you joined a little bit later. And we have already been addressing some questions that I was actually, to be honest with you, also planning to ask you, right? Just because you are not the only author of this wonderful book that you just introduced, but you've also by now learned how to code. Now, that actually brings me immediately to one of the core questions that I also posed to Jesse earlier. And I want to pose this now to you, and then move back to Maria with another type of question that is more, let's say, related to hackathons and whatnot. Now, first of all, Alex, I would love to hear from you, like, if you had maybe to pinpoint one technique or strategy that has really helped you master Solidity, which thing would it be? Enlighten us.
I think the best thing that I actually ever had was in 2022, when it's not the only strategy. So I'll give two or three with the kind of that are interconnected. So basically, first of all, one of the things is to not rush it, because, as Jesse said, Web3 is quite complicated. It's not only that it's complicated, it's also that you don't have as many, let's say, as much material as you would have for Python, for example, which is much easier to learn something like that, because you have books, you have videos, you have so many things about Python. On Solidity, not so much yet. It's the most mainstream, let's say, blockchain language or smart contract language. So it's still quite popular, let's say, within the blockchain domain. But still, when you compare it to Python, it's not as mainstream, at least for the moment, let's say, or as JavaScript, let's say, which is a bit perhaps more comparable. And basically, one of the things is to not rush it, learn and understand what you're learning. Let's say you learn something, then go for a walk outside, think about what you learned, try to process it in your mind, try to explain it to yourself. If you have friends, let's say, who might be interested in this, try to explain it to them, because it's not only how to code it, it's more about understanding it. Because even if you forget how to do something, let's say if you forget how to create, let's say, an ERC20 token, I'm just giving an example. You can still find how to do this online. You can search, let's say, you can Google, you can use ChatGPT and all of these things. But the thing is, the most fundamental thing is to understand what you're doing, to understand the logic behind it, and then you will be much more comfortable with this. And then also building stuff as well yourself. Let's say if you learn from the book or from wherever how to do ERC20, an ERC20 token on an ERC721 token, then research yourself how to do maybe ERC 1155, or try to kind of even if you break the contract, let's say, just try to do your own stuff. If you have any ideas, even if you break once, twice, or three times, at some point something is going to work, and then you will understand that you're actually much more near learning and mastering something than not just reading it or watching, let's say, tutorials and going and just doing what they're doing. So basically, firstly is to understand. Then if you can explain it to someone who might be interested in this. And the third one is just try and build something for yourself, let's say, without how do you call it, without having to go too much into a book or too much into some material. You can still reference the material, of course, but just try and be creative and build something yourself, even if it's something very simple, right? Even if it is, okay, this is maybe a bit too simple, even if it's just a simple hello world, as I said, as long as you yourself build it and you think and you manage to build it without too much help, then you're at that point, I think you're near the kind of mastery level, let's say. Of course, not if you figure out how to write hello world, you would have to work something much more, let's say, complicated, but you get the point, let's say. So that's what I wanted to say. And also using ChatGPT, if you don't understand something, use ChatGPT and ask, okay, this is the concept that I'm struggling with. Can you give me some metaphors? Can you simplify it to me? Can you explain it to me like I'm five? And so forth. And it kind of helps you understand certain things, especially if you're not coming from a computer science background.
Oh, I
So
can
that's more or less it.
definitely relate to that last point.
Mhm.
I think though, Alex, and thank you for bringing
Mhm.
all of that to us. I want to move for a
Mhm.
second as well to Jesse and Maria, because I believe that they also wanted to add something here. Jesse, you wanted to add something here, and maybe Maria as well, if I'm not mistaken. Jesse, would you like to go first? And I will just unmute you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything Alex was just saying. I just want to also kind of throw in there that one thing to do when you're trying to tackle building smart contracts, and I keep going back to the concepts, but try to simplify what you're doing. All right, so like for example, if we're just looking at a smart contract generally, and you're already a developer, then you can just look at it like you're interacting with an API. You can really break it down as simple as that a smart contract is really just interacting with an API. And that really, really simplifies your logic there if you just kind of break stuff down like that. If we go into like more complicated concepts like account abstraction, which is something that everybody kind of freaks out about when they're talking about, it's just covering gas fees for somebody else. So it's just a process of building a specialized wallet to make it so you can cover gas fees for somebody else, essentially, is what you're doing with account abstraction. So trying to take these concepts and break them down into something really simple, rather than when you're reading the EIPs for something, it can be super complicated and it sounds really over the top. But if you really break it down paragraph by paragraph and take that paragraph and try to summarize what is it saying here, and then you can really kind of break the concepts down to something really, really simple and kind of make it a lot easier to wrap your mind around these things.
Beautiful. I love that. I have to admit that I was just also at the same time checking some of the comments on LinkedIn, because we don't always see everything here. And I want to thank the wonderful audience for engaging and for supporting and for their wonderful and kind comments as well. Now, Maria, I believe that you also had something to add, right? Please feel free.
Yes, because in EkoLance, we have organized 2 boot camps for Solidity, or how to start learning Solidity. And we have done some research before we decided in what shape and form to teach Solidity, right? And the research we have done was with the purpose to figure out how do people learn best, right? And there are various ways how to learn. You can read a book, you can watch online tutorials, you can like so many different things. But I think one important component is to have a sparings partner or a community you're learning with. That's why I love boot camps so much. The downside, however, of a boot camp is that it is very fast paced, right? So Alexandro said, don't rush yourself. And I think this is so important. So if you really have a lot of time to dedicate to learn Solidity, you can join a boot camp because you have your peers you're learning with. You can learn together. You can do a project together. You can ask questions. You can have like a tutor to answer to you immediately. It's really cool, and you learn in a very short period of time. But if you're someone working full-time somewhere, you don't have a lot of time to dedicate, I have another tip. It's a game called Crypto Zombies, and I really like it. I'm gonna send it to you, Alex. Maybe you can post it in the comments. And it's a gamified way to learn Solidity, where it's like, again, like you have level 1, you have to build something small, then level 2, you have to build more and more and more, and then you can learn in your own pace in a gamified way. So this is also a very cool way of learning.
Massive. Thank you very much, Maria. Very, very useful tips, actually. And I appreciate you also live sharing the links with us. Maybe I will take that. Yeah, you bring up this very topic. I will take that for a second and pull it towards me and say that, of course, you can also go to wonderful ETH events, right? Or to other types of events in case you're not necessarily interested in Solidity only. Of course, this event today was very much about Solidity, but I think that a lot of the arguments apply vis-a-vis also on other types of languages out there, ecosystems out there. What I can say is that, for instance, in case you are interested to join ETH Bucharest, for instance, for free, thanks to our wonderful collaboration with the team there, we have free tickets to go to ETH Bucharest. We also have other collaborations coming up, for instance, with a big event here in Naples, Italy, and a range of others as well. So in case you do want to go to events as well, that is very much something that I think everyone here, but definitely we at Thrill Labs very much encourage you to do, indeed, to network, to build, and to get stuff done. And that actually brings me maybe also to this slide over here that I will make a little bit bigger. Actually, Alex kindly put this together as well. There's a couple of also hackathons here. Look, even Tech Fiesta has been mentioned kindly by Alex, which is, if I'm not mistaken, Maria, actually one of the platforms that you've built, right?
Yes, exactly. This is our hackathon platform, and we have a Telegram community that is linked here, where we announce events, hackathons, workshops that we organize, and it's a great place to meet other people who are learning, building. We introduce new protocols or like existing protocols that we have collaborations with. So it's a really cool place to learn.
Massive. That's amazing. I'm not even sure if you guys knew it from each other, but this is very funny. And then on top of that, we also have this one over here that Alex very kindly put together another slide, right, with a couple of resources as to how you can start learning Solidity, as indeed Maria mentioned, Crypto Zombies, the one that was mentioned priorly by Jesse, the remix thing, if I can call it as such, forgive my ignorance here. That one is not listed over here, but everyone make sure to check out this resource here. They're not clickable, so I guess that you just have to memorize, or we can, put this later in some of the comments. But in any case, massive thanks for having shared this. And let me just move back. Yes, you can also screenshot, of course, Alex, very cleverly put. Now, actually, I want to move, given that we have more or less 20 minutes left, right, in today's wonderful session. I want to move for a second to a couple of other questions. First of all, AI, right? We already tapped in a little bit about it when we spoke about ChatGPT and whatnot. I want to move for a second to Alex and Jesse, and then maybe afterwards, Maria, if you have something to add, please feel free, of course, to do so. Has, if at all, I think yes, AI enhanced your learning experience? Or how else, has it really helped you? Do you have some other maybe tools that you would like to mention? Ways how you leverage maybe ChatGPT specifically with your coding work? Maybe any specific tips here? I would ask you first, Jesse. Let me just unmute you first. No, you're good to go. I think your mic is still muted, though. Yeah, we're all humans, that's for sure. If you were an AI, this wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. No, I would say that AI has been invaluable to my personal growth with developing just generally, but also within Solidity. The first time that I used AI was after I had gotten through teaching myself React, like to a certain degree, like enough to build like an app to a certain degree, and taught myself Node.js and had worked on to trying to build my own blockchain. And I was having a really hard time trying to like really wrap my head around some of the things that were going on within the actual blockchain mechanisms themselves, and I, for the first time, went on to ChatGPT and just started having a conversation with it. And I had that blockchain built by the end of that day, with nodes and the whole 9 yards. Like it was ready to go. Like it was not perfect. It wasn't, and that's one thing that I'll definitely say also is that AI will take you to a certain place, but it will be wrong. A lot of times it'll be wrong, especially in this space, because a lot of these concepts are evolving constantly, and it takes time for these models to catch up and understand where things have evolved to. So you will have to have some kind of understanding there. But as far as like just general learning the concepts and getting smart contracts built and things like that, we're at a point these days with AI where if you understand how to construct a smart contract, you can literally write a couple of paragraphs into ChatGPT and it will spit out pretty nice, secure smart contract for you, actually. So yeah, those tools are amazing in my opinion. They're life-changing in this space, and yeah, I would recommend everybody to jump on it. I hear some people, I'll say this and then I'll wrap up, but I hear some people say that they're avoiding using it, and I don't understand that. Personally, you should use it. I think you should use it as much as you possibly can. Don't let it think for you. You need to think for yourself. But to bounce ideas off of, and to dive deep into theories, and to really explore concepts deeper than you probably could on your own just by browsing around, yeah, definitely dive into that. I recommend it.
I know. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you very, very much. I know that all the thoughts that you just shared, they sparked some ideas, some other thoughts from our guests. I think, let me move really quickly to Maria and then actually to Alex, who I know also has shared a lot about AI probably in his book. Maria, please go ahead with what you have to offer.
So I would kind of challenge the whole thing, right? I completely agree with you that you can use ChatGPT for writing code. So why do I need developers then, right? So I, as a founder, have to kind of spend my money wisely, right? So if until now, let's say I had a developer team of maybe 3 people to build my app and test it and build it and everything. Now, what happens, right? If I have ChatGPT, do I need developers, or can I just get only one developer working part-time for me? Like how much more efficiency I can expect from my development team if they are using ChatGPT?
I don't know if this is a question that we can immediately answer. I'm sure that actually, Jesse, I know that you have ideas about this, but I want to move for a second to Alex. Do you have any thoughts on this very topic?
Yes, actually, I'm going to be a bit. I agree with everything that Jesse said, but I'm going to be a bit more of an devil's advocate, and I would actually say when you should not use AI when you're learning, and that's actually when you learn and you start coding smart contracts. Do not go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I need a smart contract that does this, 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 this." Like for instance, if you go to to ChatGPT, you can create an ERC20 contract probably without having to do it you manually. But when you learn, do it manually so you can understand what each block of code does. Because if you know for more or less conceptually perhaps what an ERC20 contract is, maybe you can go and maybe basic, let's say, coding in terms of Solidity, and you go to ChatGPT and ask for an ERC20, it will probably give you an okay smart contract, let's say, but just go and do it manually in the very beginning to learn what each block of code does. So you can understand if, let's say, the AI is wrong in something, so you understand why it is wrong. If you need to change something, let's say, you know what to change, how to change, and why to change. So that's something that I think people should also know, that don't just rely on AI exclusively, just also learn to do it at least in the very beginning yourself, so that you understand what it is that you're doing and not just copy pasting from AI, let's say.
Yes, I would say that probably makes a lot of sense. Not only of course, in coding, but also elsewhere. So that's a very,
Mhm.
very valid and important point. Now, Jesse, I know that you wanted to mention something before when Maria was provocating us slightly with, do we need even developers? Like, how do we enhance? How much productivity can we even get from our team? You had something to add there, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, as far as like to that, um, you should expect more productivity for sure, right? But do you need devs? I would say that the experience that is acquired over time of dealing with these things, uh, repeatedly. If you go on to ChatGPT, for example, and you say, I want you to build me an ERC20 smart contract, and you just say that, right? It's not going to do anything for reentrancy guarding or anything, any kind of security components that need to be included in that app. It's not going to, like, only owner functions and things like that. It's not just going to automatically include those kinds of things for you. And so if you don't know what you're looking at, and you don't know what reentrancy even is, then you're not going to know to protect against that, And so, yes, those tools are there to where non-devs can do that, but you really, really put yourself at risk if you go that route completely. The other part of your question also was, can you just get away with a part-time dev? Yeah, depending on what your needs are. It's not the most time consuming thing in the world to have a smart contract written, so to freelance that, or something like that, rather than to hire somebody, isn't necessarily like a crazy thought as far as that goes. So
That is an interesting point that you make there. Maria, in that regard, I think this is a nice bridge to circle back to you for a second, because I believe that you might also have some tips for using potentially ChatGPT for jobs and whatnot. Would you like to add something there?
Yes, this is something that is actually super easy. So when you find a job that you would like to apply for, you can just copy the job description, put it in ChatGPT, and then copy paste your CV. So basically make it in a PDF or just screenshot it. Also upload it to ChatGPT in the same sequence, right? And then say, I want to apply for this job, optimize my CV for it. And give me like step-by-step tips how to optimize my CV for it. And then ChatGPT does an amazing job, in my opinion, because they look at every section of your CV. They rewrite it for you. They also tell you what additional qualifications you can get. So if you're not super qualified for the job, they can tell you, oh, get a certificate in this or do a course on this. So for me, it was really, really helpful to know this feature. It's really simple and not a like very hard to think about, but I think a lot of people don't know that you can use ChatGPT for that. Yeah, so I would definitely advise you to check this opportunity out and see how you can rewrite your CV and your LinkedIn as well. I did this to my LinkedIn account, where I also basically screenshotted my LinkedIn in one document, and then I uploaded it to ChatGPT and said I would like to be asked more for advisory board roles and for partnership roles and that kind of stuff, right? What I'm looking for. And then ChatGPT suggested to me how to optimize my LinkedIn. And I think this is really a cool way to, it's like asking a friend, what can I do to be more appealing for certain jobs?
That's wonderful. I love how you give these tangible tips, right? In terms of how to land new jobs, in terms of get those gigs, really land them. Whilst Jesse and Alex are also very much speaking about the ins and outs, like parts that I cannot always even comprehend. So it's lovely to feel this balance here. Now, with an eye on the time, lady and gentlemen, I would like to quickly ask you, before I circle back maybe quickly to Maria, I want to ask you really quickly, Jesse, about your biggest mistake whilst learning Solidity. I'm giving you a couple of seconds to think about that, because I will move to Alex first and ask you, Alex, given that we have limited time and you came a little bit later, what is maybe one final learning that you describe in your book that you would really like the audience to know? It can be anything, but something that you're particularly eager to share. Wildcard.
I think one thing, it's a bit of an outside of the box kind of thing that I do in my book, like in the sense that I compare Solidity and programming languages to human languages, let's say within the book. So I kind of say that it's um, when, like, a normal, let's say, human language has verbs, has all of these things, has verbs, has sentences. So do, let's say, the how do you call it, programming languages, right? So basically, when you have, let's say, a programming language, let's say a normal language has grammar, right? A programming language, on the other hand, has a syntax, basically. So it's not the same, of course, but it's in a way connected in some way. So yeah, especially at the very beginning, what I do is that I kind of connect it to human languages so that people can understand it a bit better. So that's what I would basically share, that it's more like when you learn a programming language, it's a bit like learning a human language, not in the sense that you have syntax, you have certain, which could be seen as grammar, then you kind of have different, let's say, things within the functions and everything. I don't want to go too much into depth into it, but basically it's not that unlike learning a human language, in the sense that it's communication, but instead of communicating with a human being, you communicate with a computer, let's say, right? So that's how kind of I start teaching at the very beginning. And I think it's, in a way, when I was also talking with my technical editor of it, he kind of liked the idea, because he kind of also saw the parallels of it. And I think it simplifies, especially for people that do not know how to program at all, let's say they have no background at all. It kind of simplifies a lot of things in how to understand it conceptually, let's say.
I think that is beautifully put. Actually, you did an amazing job, because I am doing this panel, right? Showing like the different screens all the time. So I'm not always 100% listening. I must admit that to the audience. But you just sold your book to me, even while I was only listening for like 50%. I heard like analogical reasoning. I heard simplifying. So I was like, okay, I have to get this book. So I'm definitely going to order this book. I must recommend anyone else to check it out on Amazon. We have no financial interest here, but I definitely think this is going to be an amazing job for every job maybe that you will get, and an amazing thing actually to check out, to learn. Now, Jesse, we gave you 1 or 2 minutes to think about your biggest mistake, right? Did you come up with something that is very interesting? Then we move to Maria.
Yeah, I think that, I've touched on it a lot throughout the hour, and Alex just touched on it too. And it's understanding the concepts first, and I think that for a while I was just trying to code it, and just understand, you know, I was just trying to figure out how to code it. I did not have a full understanding of what was happening with the EVM, and like a complete understanding of the functionality of a smart contract, like what's actually happening with it. And I think that kind of stunted my growth a little bit at the beginning, until I did start focusing first on concepts and then moving on to coding the concepts out. That was probably my biggest mistake. Once I corrected that, it's been nonstop ever since.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for saying that so honestly. I think this transparency and just the debates that we're having, the knowledge sharing, and just connecting with one another from all over the world and talking about something that binds us all together, that is coding, that is creating stuff on chain, or at least, helping each other land jobs and just grow the ecosystem together. This is also something that is very characteristic, I think, of our industry, and something that binds us together. This was a very long sentence, by the way. Sorry about that. So finally, Maria, before I have an exciting little announcement to make, thanks to the other guests here. Now, Maria, I would like to give also 1 or 2 minutes to you. Maybe some final thoughts, something that you thought, gosh, I should have said this earlier, or maybe you just want to throw a word out once again about EkoLance, about the hackathons that you're doing. Feel free to take the floor.
I would advise everyone to subscribe to our newsletter at EkoLance. Go to our website ekolance.io, and subscribe to our newsletter, because every month the newsletter gives you the opportunity to see open job positions for technical and non-technical specialists that you're not finding on the Web3 jobs websites. So these are jobs that are not just very easy to find. Also jobs from our ecosystem partners. And also there is a list of events that you can attend in the next month. So with every newsletter, you also get a list of exciting events you can actually go to, or online events that you can attend. So I would advise you to subscribe to our newsletter.
That makes absolute sense. I would say, in my opinion, in that regard, I would say also definitely check out Thrilled Labs website, and also the app itself. We have wonderful collaborations as well as event ticket giveaways and whatnot, events that are so important for landing jobs, for networking, right, for having fun. I would like, before I'm thanking our guests, I would like to quickly announce that thanks to Alex and Maria, and also to Jesse joining, we have a very exciting giveaway, actually, that we can host. If you want, you can write to info@thrilledlabs.io that you attended this very webinar today, and that you would love to win, indeed, Alex's book that is forthcoming very, very shortly, because thanks to Alex's generosity, we can give away 1 copy. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, enter the draw, and we will let you know in a couple of weeks from now. I'm not going to give you a precise date just because the book still needs to be put out there. We're going to announce who have won it, and we're going to send it over to you. So definitely reach out. Thank you so much, Alexandros, for your generosity. I hear now that it's going to be out on the 29th of April, which is a beautiful day. It's also a holiday in the Netherlands. I'm adding that very useless detail to this very sentence. It's actually around King's Day. So having said that, thank you so much to the kings of coding and the queen of jobs and hackathons and whatnot. I would like to thank our royal and important guests here for having joined today. Maria of EkoLance, of course, Jesse of Decentralized Ventures, Funding Chain, and indeed Thrilled Labs itself. And last but not least, Alex, indeed, of this wonderful book that we're seeing here on the right. Thank you all so much also for having tuned in. We were very much thrilled and indeed honored to get some of your attention. And if you have any questions for our guests, just feel free to reach out to them. You have seen the QR codes. You can connect with them on LinkedIn or even find them on Thrilled. Thank you all so much, everyone. And we are going to disrupt this live session. Thank you all so much, and speak soon. See you at the next session. Bye-bye.